Why you should retire later, if you can, 3 lifespan benefits. You know, there's something they don't tell you when you're counting down those last few years to retirement. Everyone talks about the freedom, the relaxation, the well-earned rest. But hardly anyone mentions what happens when that rest turns into too much rest. Now, I'm not here to tell anyone they shouldn't retire. Heaven knows you've earned it after decades of hard work. But what if I told you that staying engaged in work just a little longer if you're able to might actually give you more years to enjoy that retirement? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. 3 powerful reasons why continuing to work, even just part-time or in a different capacity, could add not just years to your life, but life to your years. And no, this isn't about working yourself to the bone. It's about finding that sweet spot where work becomes less about making ends meet and more about keeping all of you, your mind, body, and spirit firing on all cylinders. Let's start with what might be the most surprising benefit: your brain health. Now, we've all heard the saying, use it or lose it. But when researchers actually studied people who retired later versus earlier, they found something remarkable. Those who worked longer showed significantly lower rates of cognitive decline. Think about your job, any job, as a daily workout for your brain. Whether you're solving problems, interacting with colleagues, learning new systems, or just remembering where you put your keys before a meeting, you're giving your brain constant little challenges. And just like muscles, our brains thrive on regular, varied exercise. Take my friend George, for example. He was a high school teacher who planned to retire at 65. But when the school asked if he'd consider staying on part-time to mentor new teachers, he said yes. Now at 72, he works just 3 days a week, but here's what he told me. Those days I go into school, I feel 10 years younger. My mind is sharp, I'm engaged, and honestly, I think it's why I can still beat my grandkids at chess. And it's not just anecdotal. Studies from institutions like the Alzheimer's Society have found that every extra year worked can delay the onset of dementia. Now that's something worth considering, isn't it? But the benefits aren't just upstairs, they extend to your physical health too. Which brings me to our second point, the power of routine and movement. Here's something we don't often think about. Retirement often means the loss of built-in daily structure. No more reason to get dressed at a certain time, no commute, even if it's just to the home office, no reason to move through your day with purpose. And while that might sound heavenly at first, our bodies actually thrive on gentle, regular activity and rhythm. Even if your job isn't physically demanding, those small movements add up. Walking to the break room, carrying groceries for lunch, standing to file papers, it's all movement we don't realize we're getting until it's gone. And when that movement disappears, our muscles weaken faster, our joints stiffen, and our energy levels drop. I remember talking to Linda, a bank manager who switched to part-time consulting after retirement. She said something that stuck with me. I thought retirement would mean more time for the gym, but somehow I ended up moving less overall. Going back to work 2 days a week got me back into a rhythm where exercise became natural again. And here's the beautiful thing, it doesn't have to be the same old job. Maybe it's turning a hobby into a small business, or volunteering in a role that feels meaningful. The key is maintaining that sense of purpose and keeping your body in its natural rhythm of activity. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but what about stress? Isn't retirement supposed to be less stressful? That's an excellent question, and it leads perfectly into our next point. You know, when we talk about stress and retirement, there's this assumption that walking away from work automatically means walking into relaxation. But here's something fascinating. For many people, retirement actually increases certain kinds of stress. Now, that might sound counterintuitive, but stick with me, because this is where things get really interesting. Let's talk about our third big benefit, purpose as stress relief. It turns out that meaningful engagement, whether through work, volunteering, or mentoring, can be one of the most powerful stress regulators we have as we age. Think about it this way: work gives us natural challenges, problems to solve, people to connect with, small victories to celebrate. These aren't just tasks, they're opportunities to feel capable, valued, and needed. And when that structure disappears, many people find themselves wrestling with a new kind of anxiety, the kind that comes from too much open time and not enough anchors. Dr. Emily Carter, a gerontologist I spoke with recently, put it perfectly. The stress of work is often predictable, you know the rhythms, the expectations. But the stress of purposelessness? That's far more insidious. It creeps in quietly, wearing down resilience over time. Now, I'm not suggesting you should stay in a high-pressure job that's draining you. But consider this: transitioning to something different, something with flexibility but still engagement, might give you the best of both worlds. Take Robert, for example. He spent 40 years in corporate finance before retiring at 65. Within 6 months, he realized he missed the mental stimulation. So he started offering free financial coaching at his local community center, just a few hours a week. Here's what he told me. I get to use my skills without the Wall Street stress. And when a young couple thanks me for helping them buy their first home, that's better than any bonus I ever earned. This brings us to our fourth benefit, one that might surprise you: social longevity. We don't often think about work as our social lifeline, but for many of us, it's where we've built our deepest connections outside family. Colleagues become friends, routines become rituals, and those daily interactions, even the small talk by the coffee machine, keep us woven into the fabric of community. Research from Harvard's longevity study, the one that's tracked lives for over 80 years, shows something remarkable. Strong social connections are one of the strongest predictors of how long and how well we live. Not genetics, not wealth, relationships. And for many, work provides that built-in social network. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But can't I just join a book club or meet friends for lunch? Absolutely. But here's the difference. Work relationships often have a shared purpose beyond just socializing. You're creating something together, solving problems together. That collaborative energy is uniquely nourishing. Martha, a retired nurse who now teaches CPR classes part-time, told me, "When I first retired, I'd meet friends for lunch, but it wasn't the same as working alongside someone toward a common goal. Now, teaching with other instructors? We laugh, we problem solve, we save lives together. That connection feeds my soul in a way I didn't know I was missing." And this leads perfectly into our final point, one that changes everything about how we view aging and contribution. You know, there's a beautiful shift that happens when we start thinking about work not just as something we have to do, but as something we get to do. That's our fifth and most profound benefit: legacy building. Because here's the truth: your later years might just be your most impactful ones. Think about all you've learned over a lifetime, the wisdom earned through experience, the patience cultivated through challenges, the perspective that only comes from having seen decades of change. That's not just valuable, it's irreplaceable. And continuing to share it, whether through paid work or passionate contribution, creates a ripple effect that outlasts us. I'll never forget meeting Helen, a former school principal who retired at 70, only to launch a literacy program pairing seniors with struggling readers. At 78, she told me with tears in her eyes, "These children call me Grandma Teacher. When I see their progress, I don't just feel useful, I feel eternal." That's legacy in action. Now let's address the elephant in the room: health limitations. Because I know some of you are thinking, this sounds great, but what if my body won't cooperate? Here's the beautiful part: meaningful engagement comes in countless forms. Maybe it's consulting from your garden chair using a lifetime of knowledge, recording oral histories for your local historical society, teaching your craft via Zoom to interested learners worldwide. The key isn't the format, it's maintaining that vital connection between what you know and who needs to know it. As we wrap up, let me share one last scientific insight that ties this all together. Researchers at Oregon State University found that healthy adults who retired just 1 year past age 65 had an 11% lower risk of death from all causes. 11%. That's not just more years, it's more life. So here's my challenge to you. Reframe retirement as an evolution, not an ending. Explore hybrid options. Could you phase out gradually? Follow your curiosity. What unmet need aligns with your skills? Remember, this isn't about clinging to work, It's about consciously choosing engagement where it serves you. Your perfect balance might look completely different from your neighbor's, and that's exactly as it should be. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you considering an encore career? Have you found creative ways to stay engaged? Share your story in the comments. Your experience could light the way for someone else. If this conversation resonated with you, hit that like button. It helps others find this content. And if you're not yet subscribed, join our community for more thoughtful discussions about thriving in your wisdom years. Here's to writing your next chapter, on your own terms, with purpose, connection, and plenty of wonderful years ahead. After all, why retire from life when you can redesign it?